Have you ever noticed this strange shift? The moment you stop explaining yourself, people lean in. The moment you stop defending your choices, people hesitate. And the moment you stop asking to be understood, you become harder to control, harder to manipulate, and almost impossible to dismiss. This isn't confidence. This isn't arrogance. This is something deeper. Here's the truth most people never hear. You don't lose respect because you're wrong. You lose respect because you over-explain. Every extra sentence you add, every justification, every emotional defense, it quietly tells the world, I need you to agree with me, and the world responds by testing you. But the people who carry real power, they don't rush to clarify. They don't scramble to be understood. They don't argue for their boundaries. They pause. They speak once, and they let silence do the heavy lifting. In this video, I'm going to show you why silence creates authority, why explaining too much weakens your presence, and how the exact moment you stop explaining yourself, you don't become cold, you don't become rude, you become untouchable. Stay with me, because once this clicks, you'll never speak the same way again. Let's get honest for a moment. Most people don't explain themselves because they want clarity. They explain themselves because they want permission. Permission to be different. Permission to say no without guilt. Permission to choose a path that doesn't make sense to everyone else. And that's human. We're wired to belong. But the moment you start explaining, something subtle shifts. You don't notice it, but the other person does. You're no longer standing firmly in your decision. You're presenting it for review. And without realizing it, you hand over your authority. Now, the listener isn't just hearing your choice. They're evaluating it, judging it, testing how flexible you are. That's where things backfire. Because once someone senses that your decision needs their approval, a dangerous thought forms in their mind. If I push back, they'll adjust. If I disagree, they'll justify. And the more you justify, the more they feel entitled to question you. This is how respect slowly leaks out of conversations. Not through arguments, not through conflict, but through over-explaining what never needed permission in the first place. Powerful people understand this instinctively. They don't overtalk their decisions. They don't audition their boundaries. They decide, they stand, and they move forward without asking the room to agree. And that's exactly where authority begins. Here's something psychology rarely says out loud, but you can feel it instantly. When someone starts over-explaining, the words don't matter as much as the energy behind them. Because subconsciously, the listener isn't just hearing information, they're picking up signals. And those signals sound like this: uncertainty, self-doubt, fear of rejection. Even if the explanation is logical, even if it's well thought out, even if it's completely correct, confidence is never proven through logic. It's transmitted through certainty. You can feel when someone believes themselves, and you can feel when they're trying to convince you. That's why the most powerful people don't rush their words. They don't stack arguments. They don't flood the room with reasons. They speak simply, and then they stop. Because silence communicates something words never can. I'm comfortable where I stand. And that comfort changes the dynamic. That's why, in any room, the person who controls the energy is rarely the loudest. It's not the most emotional. It's not even the most intelligent. It's the calmest, the one who doesn't fidget when questioned, the one who doesn't explain themselves into a corner, the one who allows space after they speak. Calmness signals self-trust, and self-trust is what people respond to before they ever respond to logic. Powerful people follow a rule most people never learn. And once you see it, you'll notice it everywhere. They don't explain what doesn't need approval. They don't justify their boundaries. They don't argue with disrespect. And they don't debate their values just to keep the peace. Why? Because explaining something that doesn't require permission quietly lowers its status. Powerful people understand this instinctively. They don't overtalk their decisions. They don't soften their standards to make others comfortable. They don't rush to fill silence when someone challenges them. They state, they decide, they move, and when someone questions them, something interesting happens. They pause. No defensiveness, no emotional reaction, no frantic clarification, just a pause. And that pause is not weakness, it's control. Because in that moment, the pressure shifts. The person asking the question expects resistance or explanation, but instead they're met with stillness, and stillness forces adjustment. The other person starts recalibrating their tone. Their posture changes. Their certainty fades because the mind reads that pause as confidence. It signals, I'm not rushed, I'm not unsure, I'm not seeking approval. That's why powerful people don't chase understanding. They allow it to come or not. They know that people who respect you will adjust without explanations. And people who don't respect you were never going to accept one anyway. So instead of arguing, they stay grounded. Instead of convincing, they stay calm. Instead of explaining, they stay firm. And over time, something shifts. People stop pushing. They stop questioning every decision. They stop testing boundaries. Not because you argued better, but because you stopped explaining what never needed permission in the first place. Here's why silence feels uncomfortable. For them, not you. Most people are used to control through reaction. They say something, and they expect a response, an explanation, an emotion, a defense, because reactions give them information, and information gives them leverage. When you explain yourself, you give them material to work with. They can twist it, question it, push back on it. When you argue, you give them even more power because now you're emotionally invested in changing their mind. But when you stay silent, everything changes. There's no data, no angle, no weakness to grab onto. And that's deeply unsettling for someone who relies on control. Silence forces people to sit with their own assumptions. And assumptions are uncomfortable because the mind almost always jumps to worst-case conclusions. They start wondering, did I misjudge them? Did I push too far? Why aren't they reacting? That uncertainty creates nervousness because control depends on predictability, and silence removes it. This is why silence feels heavy in a room, why people rush to fill it, why they suddenly soften their tone or change direction. Silence flips the power dynamic without saying a word. You're no longer reacting to them. They're reacting to you. And the most important part, you're not doing anything aggressive. You're not dominating. You're not trying to intimidate. You're simply refusing to give access to your internal world. And when someone can't read you, can't provoke you, can't pull an explanation out of you, they lose their grip. That's the hidden strength of silence. It's not passive, it's not weak, it's controlled restraint, and controlled restraint is one of the strongest positions you can stand in without ever raising your voice. Think about this for a moment. Two people delivered the exact same message. The intention is identical. The outcome is not. Person A says, I can't come because I'm tired, and I had a really long day, and I've been stressed lately, and I just need rest, and what's happening here isn't honesty. It's negotiation. Every extra sentence opens a door. Every reason invites a counter-argument. Oh, come on, it'll be quick. You can rest tomorrow. You've been tired before. Now the decision is no longer theirs. It's up for discussion. Person B says, I won't be able to make it tonight. I'll see you soon. That's it. No emotion, no justification, no defense, same message, completely different energy. One invites debate, the other closes the door calmly. And here's the key difference. Person B isn't trying to manage how they're perceived. They're simply stating reality. Over time, people notice this. They stop pushing. They stop negotiating. They stop questioning every choice. Not because person B is rude, not because they're cold, but because their words feel final. The human mind respects certainty, even when it disagrees with the decision. That's why people who speak simply get questioned less over time. Their boundaries feel solid. Their decisions feel settled. And the world responds accordingly. This shift doesn't require confidence training. It doesn't require louder words. It doesn't require explanations. It requires trust. Trust in your decision, trust in your right to choose, and trust that the right people don't need a story to respect your no. That's the shift. And once you experience it, you'll never go back to over-explaining again. Let's go deeper, because this is where most people get stuck. The real reason people over-explain isn't politeness. It's fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being judged, fear of being rejected for standing their ground. So they talk more. They soften their words. They add context, background, emotion, and logic, hoping it will protect them. But here's the paradox most people never realize. The more you try to control how people see you, the less control you actually have. Because the moment you start managing perception, you place your self-worth in someone else's hands. Now you're reacting instead of deciding, adjusting instead of standing, explaining instead of trusting. Strong people do the opposite. They allow themselves to be misunderstood, not because they don't care, but because they care about alignment more than approval. They understand something deeply important. People who respect you don't need explanations, and people who don't respect you will never accept one, no matter how perfectly you phrase it. So instead of exhausting themselves trying to be seen correctly, they choose to be seen honestly. They let some people misread them. They let some people project their own stories. They let some people walk away confused, and they stay grounded anyway. That's strength, because when you stop explaining from fear, your energy shifts. Your words slow down. Your presence settles. You're no longer trying to convince the room you're worthy of respect. You're simply acting like someone who already knows it. And when that happens, something powerful follows. The right people lean in, the wrong people fade out. And suddenly, you're no longer explaining yourself to everyone, only to those who truly matter. Here's a rule that can genuinely change your life if you let it. If you need to explain your boundary, you're talking to the wrong person. Healthy people don't need long explanations. They hear a boundary and they adjust. They might not love it. They might not fully understand it, but they respect it. Unhealthy people respond very differently. They hear a boundary and push. They question it. They test it. They look for cracks. And this is where most people make the mistake. They start explaining. They think more words will create understanding. They think logic will soften resistance. They think if they just say it the right way, the other person will finally get it. But explaining to pushers doesn't create clarity. It creates opportunity. Opportunity for guilt. After everything I've done for you, opportunity for manipulation. You're being selfish. Opportunity for control. If you really cared, you would. Every explanation gives them something to grab onto, something to twist, something to use. Silence removes that opportunity. When you state a boundary and stop talking, there's nothing to negotiate, nothing to argue with, nothing to exploit. And here's the part that matters most. Boundaries aren't requests. They're information. They're not meant to be debated. They're meant to be respected. The moment you treat your boundary like a discussion, others will too. But when you state it calmly and let the silence sit, you communicate something powerful without saying it. This is not up for negotiation. The right people will adjust. The wrong people will reveal themselves. And either way, you win, because your peace no longer depends on how well you explain yourself, only on how firmly you stand. When you stop explaining yourself, 3 things happen, and they happen fast. First, people test you less. Not because you argued better, not because you proved your point, but because they sense firmness. Your decisions feel settled, your tone feels grounded, and people instinctively stop pushing on doors that don't move. Second, your words carry more weight. When you're no longer filling space with explanations, every sentence matters. You speak with intention, you speak when it's necessary, not when you're anxious. And that restraint changes how people listen. They pay closer attention, they interrupt less, they remember what you say, because silence creates contrast, and contrast creates impact. Third, you feel calmer, not because life suddenly gets easier, but because you're no longer performing for approval. You're not rehearsing conversations in your head. You're not justifying your choices emotionally. You're not trying to manage how everyone sees you. You're simply being honest with yourself. And that's where peace comes from. Not from being fully understood by everyone, not from explaining yourself perfectly, but from being aligned with your own values. When your actions match your inner truth, you don't need validation. You don't need agreement. You need clarity. And clarity is quiet. That quiet confidence is what changes how people treat you, and more importantly, how you treat yourself. Let's clear something up, because this is where many people get confused. Not explaining yourself isn't arrogance. It's not coldness. And it's definitely not disrespect. Arrogance demands agreement. Confidence doesn't need it. An arrogant person needs others to accept their view to feel powerful. A confident person is comfortable whether others agree or not. That's the difference. You can be kind without over-explaining. You can be respectful without justifying every decision. And you can be firm without raising your voice. Silence doesn't mean you're angry. It doesn't mean you're shutting people out. It means you trust yourself enough not to panic when questioned. Confidence is calm. It doesn't rush. It doesn't prove. It doesn't perform. Think about it. When someone is truly secure, they don't feel the need to convince everyone in the room. They listen. They respond briefly. And they let their actions speak. That's not ego. That's self-trust. And self-trust is deeply felt by others, even if they can't explain why. So if you've ever worried that staying quiet makes you look rude or distant, let that go. You're not being harsh. You're being honest. And when your kindness is paired with firmness, people don't feel pushed away. They feel clear about where you stand. That clarity is what real confidence looks like. Here's how to practice this without fear, because this is a skill, not a personality change. Start small. You don't need dramatic silence. You don't need to cut people off. You just need less explanation, shorter answers, calm tone, fewer justifications. That's it. Notice how often you begin a sentence with, "I just feel like," or "I hope this makes sense," but those are not kindness. They're nervous habits. Try this instead. Replace, "I just feel like maybe this isn't right for me because," with, "This doesn't work for me." No story, no defense, no apology. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your body will want to explain more. Your mind will rush to fill the silence. You'll feel a strange tension in your chest. That's not guilt, that's growth. You're breaking a pattern where approval felt necessary for safety. Practice in low stakes moments first. Decline an invitation, set a small boundary, end a conversation without over clarifying, and then pause. Let the silence exist. You'll notice something powerful. The world doesn't fall apart, people adjust, and your confidence grows quietly. This isn't about becoming distant, it's about becoming grounded. And the more you practice speaking from certainty instead of fear, the more natural it feels. Until one day you realize you no longer explain yourself by default. You choose when your words are needed. You become untouchable when something quiet but powerful shifts inside you. Your self-worth no longer depends on agreement. Your peace starts to matter more than being liked. And your decisions stop needing applause to feel real. That's the moment everything changes. People sense it before they understand it. They stop pushing your buttons because the buttons are gone. They stop testing your limits because your limits feel solid. They stop trying to shake you because there's nothing to grab. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. And that difference is everything. When your worth is internal, opinions lose their grip. When your peace is protected, drama loses its pull. When your decisions are settled, manipulation loses its power. This doesn't make you distant, it makes you steady. You still care, you still listen, you still show up with integrity, but you're no longer available for games, and people feel that. They may not know why conversations with you feel different now. They may not be able to explain why they hesitate before crossing a line, but they respect it because strength that doesn't need validation is rare, and calm that doesn't need explanation is powerful. That's what being untouchable really means. Not that nothing affects you, but that nothing controls you anymore. So if you've been over-explaining yourself, pause for a moment. This isn't a flaw, it's a phase. A phase where you were learning how to survive, how to be accepted, how to stay safe by being understood, and now you're growing out of it. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you don't become rude, you don't become cold, you don't become distant, you become grounded. You stop negotiating your worth, you stop shrinking your boundaries, you stop performing for approval, and something powerful takes its place. Calm, clarity, self-trust. That's what makes you untouchable. Not because nothing affects you, but because nothing controls you anymore. If this message resonated with you, don't overthink it. Just comment, "I choose silence," below. That one sentence is a signal to yourself first. And if you want more videos that sharpen your mindset, protect your peace, and build quiet strength, subscribe. Because the next video isn't about changing who you are. It's about showing you the power you've already been giving away. And once you see it, you won't give it back.